Here's what happened!
Dude, here's what happened. Episode 6. I'm back by myself. We had one guest and we decided that was horrible and we don't ever want to do it again, so we're not. Just kidding. It was actually great. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with Ryan. I know I seem like I was being mean to him, and that's because I was. And that's part of the fun of, like we talked about, doing comedy with your friends, is because you can absolutely destroy your friends with mean-spirited jokes, and it's fun. It's a great time. We had a lot of fun with it. So I appreciated Ryan for coming on the podcast. I did not appreciate him wearing the same color t-shirt as me. That was messed up. And, some of his jokes were a little hurtful because they were true, like about me needing bed sheet size clothing and things like that. But that's, all good insults are based at least a little bit in the truth. So good job. But that was last week. This is this week. It's just me again. We're back to a solo cast, which is fine. We're going to have more guests on in the near future. I had less time to record this week. That's why I didn't bother trying to book anybody for the podcast, because it was just not really going to work out. So, like I said, dude, here's what happened. Episode 6. Can you believe it's episode 6 already? It's been 6 weeks, I guess, at this point, month and a half into this podcast journey, doing good stuff. I got the microphone flags with the logo on it. Forgot it. And I guess I didn't really get it all the way done. So hopefully those will be on next week's podcast. Not that anyone actually cares about that, but whatever. So getting you up to speed on what's been going on in my life. This past Friday, my girlfriend and I went up to Cleveland to watch the Cavs take on the Detroit Pistons. Fortunately, we were there for a terrible loss. But that's part of being a Cleveland sports fan, is you just have to accept that you're going to be disappointed a lot, I think. But no, the Cavs are really good. It's just that they knew that I was there, so they decided to be like, because the next game they went up to Detroit and beat the heck out of Detroit, and then we went to the Cavs watch party at the arena last night and watched them give away a 20-point lead, which, hey, I'm not trying to talk trash about my Cavs. I'm just saying it's me. I think it's me. This is what happens when I show up to things. Things fall apart sometimes. That's all right. I'm not even upset. I think we're going to come back and win this dang thing. Or maybe we won't. I don't know. But hey, Eastern Conference Finals, that's a big deal. And anybody that does not care about the Eastern Conference of the NBA is completely tuned out at this point. Stick around. I'm almost done with that. All right. So Cavs, go Cavs. Let's do this. I love them. I love the Browns. I love the Guardians. It doesn't, any Cleveland team, Ohio State, I'm there for you, even if it doesn't work out. Maybe, who knows? Maybe one day we'll get some of them guys on. Dude, here's what happened. Could happen. You never know. So then let's see, we did that Friday, we did the Cavs game. Then Saturday, we just said, hey, let's road trip it. Just a day trip. We're going to go for a day trip out to Niagara Falls in New York, which was cool. I've never seen the New York side. I went to the Canadian side when I was a little kid, and you didn't need to have a passport to get up to Canada. And I just remember climbing up on the rail, and my mom, like the handrail, my mom being like, get away from there, you're going to die. And that's really all I remember about it. That, and somebody was speaking French, and my mom could understand like some of what they were saying, I guess, because she took French in high school. It's a pretty significant trip when I was little, but we had a good time. We went up to the New York side. We checked out Buffalo, just kind of drove through Buffalo. Never been to Buffalo, New York. Checked it out, and I wanted to see where Buffalo Helium was, because I hear all about Buffalo Helium and that there's a cereal factory nearby and that smells good. Checks out. It's true. So I would love to get up to Helium in Buffalo to perform myself one day, and hopefully that'll happen. But Buffalo I found it endearing. I thought this looks like a cool city that I could hang out around Buffalo. Maybe not when there's 800 feet of snow, but in the warmer months or whatever. I like snow though. So maybe I'll go up there just to catch a snowstorm sometime. I bet I could get a decent rate on like an Airbnb when there's like a huge blizzard on its way. I'll have to look into that. So that was fun though. We went and we did the Maid of the Mist. And so they give you like ponchos like as you're getting ready to get onto the boat. The problem is that the weather app had told me basically in so many words it's not going to rain. There was like a 12% chance of rain. There we go. Just like Dumb and Dumber, you're telling me there's a chance? It happened. It was pouring the rain. We got absolutely drenched on our way to the to the Maid of the Mist, and then just kind of put on an arbitrary poncho. It's like I'm already completely saturated. But that was cool. Like I said, I've never seen the New York side of it, and I've never been on the Maid of the Mist. That was pretty cool. It's a little wild, that you're out there and you're just kind of bouncing around. Because, I mean, the water's not still, obviously, out there. And then I don't remember how much water they said comes over the falls every minute or whatever the stat was, like 600,000 gallons a second or something crazy like that. Pretty wild, though. And it didn't matter if it was raining or not when you get down there. I mean, you're just getting absolutely soaked. It was a lot of fun, though. We knew that there was a possibility we were going to get soaked, so we each had brought some extra clothes, and I went to go and change into some dry clothes in the bathroom at a gas station, which, let me tell you, that makes you feel like a rock star. Just walking into a gas station with clothes in your hand and you're soaked. And I went into this bathroom, not a hook in sight, not a single hook in that bathroom. Now, I am not setting my clean clothes down on any surface in here because God knows what has happened in this bathroom. And so I somehow managed to change outfits without ever setting an article of clothing down. Wet or dry, dirty clothes, clean clothes, whichever. Didn't set anything down. Somehow was able to change completely. Pretty proud of that. I felt pretty athletic. I'm not going to lie. But it did also kind of feel like the airplane bathroom scene in Tommy Boy. It just wasn't that cramped, but I was very close to falling down and through the door. So that was an interesting experience, but it was cool. It was really cool. Then we kind of went back to Buffalo and drove around and just looked at stuff. We looked at some of the other parks around Niagara Falls, and there's I don't remember what the park was called, but there's like a place in the river that there's like 2 whirlpools. That was really cool. The problem was that with it raining like it was, it washed all the mud down the hill to the little path. And so we're just thick mud on the bottom of our shoes and then trying to get those wiped off and everything so we don't destroy the interior of my girlfriend's Lincoln like that. The Sonic, you don't really have to worry about the mud on the shoes, but in the Lincoln, you really should. That's that's a pricey vehicle, the likes of which I will never own. I don't even own this one. This one's hers too. But she said something about the air conditioner does not work in the Sonic Studios, and she's like, "You're gonna have to figure something out when it's real hot out, right? Like, because I can't have the car on, or it's too loud and it makes too much noise and it drowned everything out, and it doesn't matter anyway because the air conditioner doesn't work. I don't really want to roll the windows down too much. I mean, we'll roll them down some, let some air in, but she's like, you're gonna have to like do some of these podcasts in the Lincoln." And I was like, nope, too roomy, too luxurious. I can't do that. The name of the game is doing it in the Chevy Sonic Studio. This is a tiny car. I'm a very large man. As you saw in last week's episode, 2 people in here, very crowded. I can't wait to get somebody else my size in here. It's going to be hilarious looking, I think. And we may destroy the suspension on this thing. I don't know. We're going to have to look into the mechanics of that and make sure that we don't destroy this tiny little slice of heaven, the Chevy Sonic Studio. That was kind of cool, I thought. Maybe not so much. I guess it wasn't cool. But yeah, so that was pretty much the weekend. Good weekend. And then Sunday I just got some random stuff done that I needed to get done. And there's some people walking by that probably think that I'm an insane person. Like, why does he have a microphone sitting in a tiny car? He doesn't even fit in there. Well, that's none of their business. Okay. I'm a grown man. I'll do what I want. If I want to sit in a tiny car and talk into a microphone looking at a display of myself while people walk by and judge me, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm doing it. I mean, those people, they have probably notified the authorities at this point, and I'm probably going to be hospitalized at some point soon because I look insane. But that's all part of the fun, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so that was the weekend. The weekend was good. Got to create a little bit of merch in some of my spare time that I don't usually have a lot of, but I had some. And made some cool hats and some cool designs and whatnot. And looking forward to busting some of that stuff out. So, all right. So this is kind of different for Dude, Here's What Happened. But Dude, here's what happened. Okay. We were on a long trip, me and my girlfriend, driving to and from Niagara Falls all on the same day. And so we were listening to the radio or the radio. Music. We were listening to music. That's the word I was looking for. And, we got kind of bored after a while. And she said something about a podcast she wanted to listen to. I figure, of course, it's got to be mine. No, she doesn't do that kind of stuff. She's never going to listen to this. She doesn't even like me. I'm kidding. She actually has listened to some. She thinks I don't mention her enough. So we're working on it. All right. She's getting a lot of honorable mentions this podcast. But anyway, we were listening to some podcasts, or we were listening to some music, and then she said something about a podcast. I was like, well, what one did you want to listen to? And she listens to this one called Crime Junkie. Shout out Crime Junkie if you're listening. I'm sure you're not, but if you ever do, shout out to you. We're listening to like some like disappearances and things like that and trying to solve them, which is fun. And I know that's like a stereotypical chick thing to love true crime, and it is alarming to be dating someone who is kind of obsessed with crime. But it was interesting. It was a lot of fun, and I like true crime stuff too, and I listened to a lot of it back in the day while I was at work. I would listen to true crime stuff just to kind of keep my mind from wandering. It helps with the ADHD thing for me. If I have sometimes podcasts are better than music for me when I'm doing a job that I don't really have to think about. This is muscle memory. It just keeps my mind from wandering and being like, oh my gosh, this is never going to be over. Excuse me. So I listened to some true crime podcasts back in the day. My life was very different back then. I had a lot of stuff going on. I was very anxious about and very depressed about and stuff like that. Anxiety and depression, true crime podcasts, not exactly a match made in heaven. So I kind of got away from it. And, my bread and butter is comedy podcasts like Dude, Here's What Happened, or any other, a lot of comedians have podcasts, and they're a lot of fun to listen to. It's like you're hanging out with the guys or girls, depending on whose podcast it is. And I enjoy that. But so we listened to these true crime podcasts and stuff. And she was like, do you like listening to stuff? I'm like, yeah, I think it's interesting. And she's like, oh, that's great. There's a documentary I want to watch on Netflix. And I bet you know which one I'm going to say, because it is all over the internet right now. It is the Crash documentary on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It is very intriguing. And being from Northeast Ohio, knowing where all that stuff is, and it's very interesting to see something like that. And I don't know, it's a wild thing to see. Like these were young kids, and if you haven't seen it and you don't want me to talk about stuff from it, pause this and resume once you're done watching The Crash on Netflix. But I'm going to talk about it a little bit. That's what I was saying is going to be a little bit different about this episode of Dude, Here's What Happened. We're going to talk about a little bit of the true crime documentary, because it is very, very intriguing. And I've looked into it a lot. And I'm not going to make this a true crime podcast, because I'm not good at that. And you would not want to listen or watch. And I just want to say that I don't want to be disrespectful to the families involved in the tragedy. I don't want anyone to take offense to any takes that I have or anything. So I'm not going to go real super into it. I'm just going to tell you what happened in the documentary, because after all, this is Dude, Here's What Happened. So, dude, here's what happened. This was a group of kids that went to Strongsville High School. Or at least some of them went to Strongsville High School. It was in Strongsville, Ohio. If you don't know where Strongsville, Ohio is, it's right up there by Cleveland. We're on the west end, I believe, and like right off of I-71. And there was this young couple, and they had been together for a while. He was a little older than she was, so he had his own place. Her parents let her move in with him, I think, while she was still in high school, which is a little bit wild, I think. And so, I mean, first of all, my parents wouldn't have let me live on my own while I was in high school, because they know that I would have never gone. It would have been like, as soon as I moved out and got my own place, I would have a 0.00 GPA, because I would simply not go to school. I'm not what you would call an academic. I did what I had to, and I did okay in school. Didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed my friends from school, but not school so much itself at all. And it just did not interest me. And I don't know, it just seemed monotonous and boring. And I don't know. I know it's important. Kids, stay in school. I have a kid. She's very gifted and very smart, and I'm very blessed with that. And she loves reading, and I hate reading, but I tell her all the time, I'm so happy for you that you love reading and that you're good at it, and don't ever lose that, because that's going to serve you very well in your future. And if I had loved reading, I might be successful. But I did not. So we'll never know. But anyway, so this girl lives with her boyfriend, I think while she's still in high school. Maybe she had graduated. I'm not exactly sure on the details there. And people said they had kind of a toxic back and forth. I think that's probably the understatement of the century. Because some of the stuff you see, it is a little more than toxic. One might even call it unhealthy and not great. But I don't know that. So they went to a party or a sleepover or whatever, depending on who you're listening to in the documentary. They were at a house and they were there until the morning. And early that morning, they decide to leave. The one friend says, "Hey, can I get a ride?" or whatever. They take him with them. There's three of them in the car, and then they go to go home. And then the next thing you know, they're on this road that goes back into a industrial park in Strongsville. And just on this little stretch of road, it's like 3/4 of a mile or something. My girlfriend took me there and showed it to me, which made me a little nervous. She's like, "Oh, you want to see where it was?" I'm like, "You're gonna be careful, right?" But we wanted to see where it happened, and that was so like a 3/4 mile stretch. This girl gets this car going like 100 miles an hour straight into a brick wall of a big building. And unfortunately, the two guys that were in the car lost their lives. And the girl that was driving the car just about did, but she survived. And so everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, this is a tragedy." You know, there's three kids that have gotten wrecked real bad in a car accident. And I cannot imagine the pain of being a parent and finding out that my child had unfortunately, passed away. My heart goes out to them because I'm like, I can't imagine what that would feel like. And I don't want to be able to imagine it. But I just sincerely, my heart goes out to those families. That's terrible. Then, the girl goes to the hospital. She makes it, pulls through, full body cast, wheelchair, the whole 9 yards, and then she recovers. And then, was it like a few months later, they arrested her and charged her with aggravated murder or something, I think. 2 counts of it. And they're like, "What's this about?" And so they had been investigating the crash, and they're like, "This was an intentional crash." And you're like, "What?" And so I guess when they looked into it, evidently cars also have a little black box, kind of like airplanes have. They're called something else. I don't remember what it's called. And from the data that thing gathered, they could see that she hit speeds of up to 100 miles an hour in that little 3/4 mile stretch, which means that pedal was jammed to the floor because it was just like a Toyota Camry or something. It wasn't like a supercar or anything. And that the brakes were never applied and that the gas was never eased off of. So pedal was smashed to the floor and stayed to the floor until they ran into that giant brick wall. And then they said they could also see that the steering wheel had been kind of like pulled at, and that the gear selector had been back and forth from drive to neutral to drive a couple of times. And they were saying that they thought that was the boys trying to like stop her, trying to get it in neutral so they could, I don't know, pull the handbrake maybe, or put it, put it in park, or so. I don't know what exactly, but that's what they were seemingly trying to do. And they they lost their lives that morning. And so we're like, okay, well, did something happen that like she was in the car too? Obviously, like she would have, you know, stood a good chance that she would die too. That's kind of wild that she would do that. That seems far fetched. And then they're like, well, funny you should say that, because 2 weeks earlier, she was having some sort of argument with her boyfriend in the car on I-71. And she was, starting to like say things to him that made him feel uncomfortable or unsafe or whatever. So he called his mom and he was like, I need someone to come and get me. Like, this is not, things are going bad. And so she called his friend to go pick him up where he was. And when the friend called him, he could hear the girl in the background saying, I'll crash this car right now. That was 2 weeks before the crash. So that's, seems like more than a coincidence, right? And then he got out and got home or whatever, and then they're back together. I guess they were on again, off again a lot. And then when the, where was I going with that? Oh, 3 days before the crash. I mean, this is exactly why I don't do true crime podcasting, because I'm not good at it. But 3 days before the crash, I think it was, she had gone the exact route that she took when they crashed. So they're like, that kind of seems like she's scoping it out. And I've heard somewhere else, I don't know if this is true. Okay, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, because I'm probably getting things wrong here. And this is not, but I guess I had heard somewhere that she had gone that route, like, multiple times before the one 3 days before there. I don't know. But it seemed as though maybe she had scoped it out. Scoped it out. Sorry, my voice is changing. But when my girlfriend took me back there, like I was going down this road, and I'm like, it's super dark back there. And there is some like subtle curving towards the end of it. And what their defense was that she had POTS. Don't ask me what I can't remember what it stands for. But I've known people with POTS before, and a lot of times, like if they stand up too quickly or something like that, they can get faint and like sometimes pass out or black out or whatever. They were saying that she must have had a POTS episode and passed out, and that's what happened. Which I know a lot of people say, like, well, wouldn't her foot come off of the gas a little bit if she did that? I don't know. It depends if she slumped over on it or whatever. But what I was thinking was, like, how would, she would not be steering if she blacked out and went limp. And that road is incredibly uneven and bumpy. And there's a couple of little like curves towards the end. And so it would seem that someone would have to like steer through all of that. And it was all gas, no brakes, kept it straight. And then at the end of that road, there's a little tree that I didn't see right away that's right at the curb. And then there's the sign for the business. And it went like almost right between it. I think they bumped the sign and then hit the building. So it kind of threaded the needle there a little bit. And it's like, that looks, I mean, I was not in the car, so I didn't see it. I didn't see it happen. I didn't see any of that stuff. I can't say anything, definitively. I can just say it seems like maybe there's something to that. And, but that's wild, right? Because why would someone like okay, so I would never want to harm anyone, but I certainly wouldn't do it like, I'm just going to take us both out. That's wild. So, your brain wants to say like, why would anyone do that's crazy? That would never happen. But then like, as they point out more stuff, you're like, I don't know. Maybe I don't. And so I guess what the prosecution was suggesting was maybe the boyfriend has finally decided he's going to leave her, and she's like, "If I can't have you, no one can." We don't actually. That's all speculation. I think nobody knows. But it would seem to fit kind of the pattern that they kind of showed. And just was like, we're all going. Which is really terrible for the kid that was, just asked for a ride or whatever. And I can't imagine how terrifying that was. Because, you've been in the car with someone that's like mad or whatever, and you've been like, even if they say something erratic, you're probably like, you're not, oh, okay, calm down. You're not going to do that. That's crazy. And then just imagine like realizing, oh my gosh, you are doing that. And you just have seconds, and man, it's wild. So I'm not going to put any hot takes in here because I'm dumb and I don't know any stuff like that. I'm just saying it's very interesting to look into the crash documentary on Netflix. So she gets arrested. She goes to court. She decides she wants a bench trial, which is just the judge. There's no jury. It's just the judge. And they're saying, like she doesn't remember the crash, all that stuff. And I can say, hey, there's a good chance she does not remember the crash, because if she had any head trauma at all, like my brother wrecked a bicycle when he was like 23. And as far as I know, he still does not remember anything after a certain point to another certain point. That's just that memory is not there in his head. So maybe she doesn't remember, but I guess that doesn't really take away from if there was a decision made before that. So she 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 lays it all out the way that she says, and then they lay it all out the way that they say, and the judge finds her guilty on all counts. She had like 12 charges, I think, because there was the 2 aggravated murder or whatever. Then there was like felonious assault. There was like I think there were some like illegal substance charges in there, possession of criminal tools and things like that. And so then she's like, she turned 18 like a couple days after the crash, I think. And so she's tried as an adult, and then she got 15 to life, 2 sentences of 15 years to life. But then the judge said concurrently, which means so her 15 years, both sentences are running at the same time instead of consecutive. They're together, and they give her credit for time served, which was probably like less than a year or something. And her and her parents seemed completely shocked that with the evidence that the prosecution pulled out, that's what the conclusion they came to. But I'm like, I don't know. It seems likely, but again, I wasn't there. I wouldn't have wanted to be the one making that decision at all, as far as like guilty, not guilty, whatever. But it did seem that the judge was not given much credit for how lenient that sentence was. I mean, I think the max would have been 30 to life, and it could have been 2 sentences of 30 to life, and they could have been consecutive. So it would have been like, you're there for the rest of your, you're not getting out. But she went 15 to life concurrently, and credit for time served. So like our first parole hearing is scheduled for like when she'll be like 34 years old or something like that. Like, it seems a bit light for what happened. But again, I wouldn't want to be put in that situation to have to decide that kind of fate or sentencing or anything like that. No, thank you. I'm just glad that I don't have to make any kind of important decisions like that, and I can just sit back and speculate. But it does seem like maybe there was something to what the prosecutor was saying, and they like immediately appealed it. I think they got shot down, and then they're just constantly trying to appeal it, and they're maintaining her innocence and all this stuff, and it's pretty wild. So all that to say, if you haven't seen The Crash on Netflix, I would check it out, and then look on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those, and just type in the name, which I won't even bother saying on here. Type in the name or The Crash documentary, and it'll just, your entire algorithm will become that. And there's all kind of, there's prison phone calls between her and her friends and her family and all this stuff, and there's some wild things in there. So if you're into that kind of thing, if you're into true crime and mysteries and things like that, check that out, because it is very, very intriguing. And it wasn't that long ago. I think it happened in 2022. But again, that being said, to the families of the victims in that situation, you have my deepest sympathies. I can't imagine what you are going through, even with having that documentary released and having those wounds kind of reopened again. My deepest condolences. I can't imagine what you're going through, and I hope you're doing okay, and I hope you're healing, and I hope you find some closure in that. And that was a little more serious than Dude, Here's What Happened usually is, but that's what happened this week, so I wanted to talk to you guys about that. We will be back next week, I think, with a guest. I haven't decided on which one yet. Might be just me, but I think I'm going to have a guest next week. So come on back next week. Check out a new episode of Dude, Here's What Happened. See you next week.
Dude, here's what happened!